Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Grimlock, and this is my, I guess, 2 weeks in a row first place Mimighoul deck profile. Last week I went X1, and this week I went XO, only dropping the very first game of the night. Every other match was a 2-0. So round one we were up against Voiceless Voice Ryugi. That was a pretty fun matchup. I also bricked game one, which is why I lost. Game two, round two rather, I was up against Unchained. Game two, they didn't have a very good board, so I very quickly won that. Game three, what happened in round three rather? Blue Eyes were playing against Blue Eyes. That was a very, very fun match. They couldn't get their tuners, so it was very easy for me to break through their board both games. Game four, round four rather, was up against an interesting deck. It was Valmonica, Fiendsmith, Ryziel. Not something I expected to come across. It was a very interesting matchup. I also didn't expect there to be not one but two Valmonica players at locals last night. So yeah, we'll get into it. We'll do a quick overview of the monsters. Some of them do, a lot of the Mimighouls have very similar effects. One that does not have an effect like any of the others is Mimighoul Master. So what Master does is on summon, searches for any Mimighoul monster. However, you're only present a one-off because he isn't full combo by himself. He's a little bit of a brick, like a soft garnet. You don't mind having him in your hand, you'd rather him be in your deck. You can also, on your opponent's turn, flip a monster face up. Which with the rest of the Mimighouls all being flip monsters is a very good thing. And also while your opponent has a set monster or you have a face up Mimighoul, other than himself, he can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. So pretty cool little boss monster. So then the rest, so they're all flip monsters with negative flip effects. They're all really bad flip effects. However, they all share the effect with being able to, during your main phase, set them to your opponent's side of the field. So the first two I'm going to show you, that's all that they can do with that effect. However, to balance it out, they have an on-summon effect. Then the ones after that, they have a condition that allows them to be summoned face up to your side of the field, so they can be used as an extender. However, they don't have any other like an on-summon effect or an on-field effect other than their flip effects. And then for the sake of the flip effects, I am going to read them as if just the way it's going to resolve from your perspective rather than the way it's written on the card, which is from your opponent's perspective. So one flip effect that they all do share as well, before I do get into it, is that once they've resolved whatever that other part of their flip effect is, you get your monster back. So you're not losing out on any card advantage that way. So Mimighoul Dragon, the best one in the deck by far, the reason to play the deck. Its flip effect is it Raigekis your opponent for all their face-up monsters. Ridiculous. And then its on-summon effect is that it searches for any Mimighoul spell or trap. Absolutely the bread and butter of the deck, the heart and soul, whatever you want to use. Amazing. Then its partner in crime, Archfiend. So Archfiend's flip effect is you draw a card, your opponent sends a card from hand to grave. Very, very powerful. This is normally the one you want to give your opponent face down at the end of your turn, and then its on-summon effect is that it non-targeting flips a monster face up, which is really, really good. So those three monsters are from the original wave. The ones that we got from the second wave, which fixed a lot of the issues with the deck. So these ones. So we'll start with them. So we've got too far up there. We've got Mimighoul Fairy. Its flip effect is your opponent can't activate the effects of monsters special summoned from the hands. That's pretty much every single Ryziel monster. Any of them they want a special summon from the hand, they can't use its effect. And its condition to summon face up to your field is you just have to have a Mimighoul monster. So, yeah, pretty easy to summon out, that's why I play it as a 3-of. And then 1 armor, 1 slime. Armor has the worst flip effect. Technically the second worst because of the format right now, but the worst flip effect of any of them in the deck. So what he does is he makes it so Mimighoul monsters can't be destroyed by battle. Can come up, not really. If it said they couldn't be destroyed by card effect, it would be a lot better. But yeah, and then his condition is just that your opponent has to control a monster. Then Slime, this is the one you can cut. His flip effect is better than Armor's, which is when he's flipped up, you get to summon a Mimighoul from your deck. And then his condition to somebody else out of the field is a bit like Pancratops. You just have to have less monsters than your opponents, which doesn't really come up turn one. He is very, very good going second. And if you already have one of your Archfiends or Dragons in rotation, he's a good replacement for one of the spell cards that we'll go over. So those are the Mimighoul monsters. We don't play Cerberus because of Malice. The last thing we want to be doing is to flip Cerberus and they banish one copy of each Malice monster. That's not going to be a fun time for us. But yeah, so moving on to the spells. Play 3 Dungeon and the 1 Terraformer Searcher because we want to see the dungeon every single game. It's absolutely amazing card. Except the turn that they are summoned, Mimighoul monsters gain attack equal to their defense, so they get quite big. Master goes up to 3,000. Dragon goes up to 2,500. Archfiend goes up to 19. Armor goes up to 2,100, and then we don't talk about the other two because they're still very low because they have very low defense. It can also, this is your grind game as well because it lets you add a Mimighoul from deck or graveyard to your hand every single turn. So not just it's not on activation. Then its third effect is why people absolutely hate playing against the deck because it's a little mini floodgate. It says whilst a player has a set monster, that player can't normal summon or attack with special summon monsters the turn that they are summoned. So very, very powerful there. Also, this does come in Quarter Century.
Where are they? I know they exist.
But I can't find them. I've looked absolutely everywhere for weeks. Can't find a single copy being sold in the UK. Very, very sad. Moving on to the other spell that we do play. We play 3 copies of Maker. Absolutely amazing card. Normally your target off of Dragon when you summon it. You reveal 2 flip monsters. Your opponent randomly chooses one to go to their field face down. You get the other to your hand. Then you can summon any Mimighoul from your hand. It doesn't have to be the one that was added, which can be very, very good if you want to, say, get 2 Archfiends on one on either side of the field to flip face up. Very good there. It can also banish itself when your opponent special summons to target a face down monster and flip it face up. That effect, however, it is a case of only use 1 effect per turn. And we don't play a Fork. I just don't think the utility that Fork provides is enough. And it's kind of like when it's the 4th best search target in a deck that can sometimes only search twice, I don't think it's worth playing. And then we don't talk about Champ, doesn't exist, it's not real. Then for the trap, we play 2 copies of Room. You don't need to play 3. We're in quite a fast format, so 2 is more than enough to slow the game down to a grind. It also guarantees that your field spell lock is staying in place. So what it does is it summons a Mimighoul from hand or deck to either field, face down if it's your opponent's field, face up if it's yours, and then non-targeting Book of Moons a card. So that can be extremely powerful. I used it against an Engraver last night to stop them from being able to use both its effect to send the Requiem it was equipped with, and also to go into a Necro equip if that's what they want to do. It also has the effect to banish itself from the graveyard, to target any number of Mimighoul cards. That's cards, not monsters. Return them to the hand. Now you might think, oh, that's not that good. You can dodge Imperms with it, you can dodge Veilers with it. If they try to Ghost Ogre or Little Knight your field spell, you can bounce it back to hand. The funniest interaction I think that I had with this was with against Snake Eyes. They put my Archfiend in the back row, so I bounced it back to hand normal, summoned it, flipped the dragon on their side of the field, and wiped their board. Yeah, and then the last, it's kind of engine, it's basically engine. We got the Azuroon statue, because we are playing Sell Hat Rabbit. Pretty good card. You often have just leftover monsters on the field, so you can turn them into that, or a Little Knight, or a Masquerena, whatever you'd like. Then cards that are technically non-engine, but I'd like to consider them engine, which are Talents and Thrust. It almost feels like this deck was designed to play these cards specifically. Not only do you are the flip monsters considered to be your opponent's card effects because they have to activate it, but also you're very often giving them a monster. So even turn 1, you can resolve this to add a card. You can add Terraform to get the field spell. You can add Maker. You could even add Talents if you needed to, or Room, or whatever you wanted really. And then just to get rid of pesky hand traps for when your hand isn't that good. Call by the Grave. Not playing Crossout Designator, I feel like this deck doesn't lose hard enough to any individual hand traps for that to be worth doing. Maybe Draw, but no one's really playing Draw at the moment, and the deck can also, depending on how good your hand is, it can just straight up play around draws anyway. So then for the hand traps, we're playing 12. We're playing the one Magnamut and the one Duoswam. You always keep these in against light decks, especially going second. You want to keep this in. Even against Malice, you'd probably take these out, but you want to keep this in because it is a starter, because you can use this to add your Mimighoul Dragon. But these were absolutely insane. Won me both games against Blue Eyes. Then Ash, Nib, Imperm. Absolutely amazing. If I was to put more hand traps in, I would probably just put 3 copies of Veiler in instead. Instead as well, but I don't want to bring the deck count all the way up to 44. We're already playing 41. So that's for the main deck. Very solid. I don't think there's anything I'd change of it, to be honest. I did try a Kashtira version. I just think you lose so much non-engine doing that. It doesn't work well with the Bestials. Doesn't work well with Nib. I think there's just too much in between them. Yeah, ripping an extra deck monster can be nice. Maybe I'll think about siding it against the matchups where neither Nib or Bestials are good, but I can't think of a matchup where that's the case. But yeah. Now moving on to the extra deck. We're 2 Giant, and we have 2 copies of... 1 copy of Throne. So a Giant Mimighoul on XE summon adds any Mimighoul card, so it gets you whatever that missing piece is that you need. It also allows your non-XE monsters, non-XE Mimighouls to attack directly, which is what I said about fixing a big issue with the deck, which is you give your opponent a bunch of set cards. You don't really want to be over them because their flip effects don't trigger in the main phase. So what you do instead, this lets you attack directly. And then let's say time is getting close, time's been called, you actually have a way to burn in time. You should never ever stall. That's just something I feel like I need to point out. Never stall in time. But if you do find yourself you're in such a long grind game that time goes cold, you can detach 1 material from this, target face-up cards on either field equal to the number of face-down monsters your opponent controls, destroy them, and if you do, your opponent takes 1,000 for each. So you can use it for that. You can also use it for just finishing off game, as quite often you can get a 3,000-4,000 attack Mimighoul Master out, and then you just need to put in and do a little bit of chip damage elsewhere, and you only need to burn them for 2, 3, and if you've got enough cards, you can potentially burn them for 4,000 life. Throne doesn't come up as often, and it's quite an interesting card. So you can detach 1 material from it to summon a Mimighoul Master from anywhere except for banishment, and then not on the same turn, because it's only 1 effect per turn, you can target a Mimighoul Master, equip himself during the main phase only as a quick effect, and then non-targeting bounce cards on the field up to the number of materials it has. It did actually come up yesterday more times where I already had the Master in play. I just used it to bounce 2 cards. Shame you can't make it with more materials. It'd be nice to maybe make a 4 material one of these, some of the Master, and then bounce for 3. But sometimes just bouncing for 1 or 2 is way more than enough. Then for the honorary Mimighoul monster, we have Ripplebird. Yes, you can play embodiment of crime or embodiment of punishment. However, there are situations that come up where you only want to flip 1 or 2 monsters. You don't want to flip everything. Maybe you don't want to give your opponent their boss monster back up, like the Mitsurugi ritual monster, you don't want to be giving them back up, so you do that instead. It also has a second effect, well, that's continuous depending on the position of all your monsters. If they're all in attack, they all gain 500 attack. If they're all in defense, your opponent can't attack. Also, did forget to mention, the first effect of this to change a monster's battle position, not once per turn, so pretty good there. We're then just playing a Zeus package of Nightingale, Downard, and Zeus itself, obviously. Not really much to say about that. I think it's just the better rank 1 to play. You can play the other bird, but yeah, not really my cup of tea. I prefer that one. And the last XC that we play is a Typhon. Typhon's good. Well, it's not good. I don't like playing Typhon. Any other deck, I would say it's a lose more card. I like to call it. You basically lose every game that you summon it. But it's kind of mandatory against Rizio right now to get rid of Detonator. And also you can... this deck can very easily play without normal or special summons. You can just set Mimighoul room and you're good to go. And that's for the XCs. The rest of the monsters are all link monsters. Just in case you do get debarried, there's a nice little toolbox here, but also these are just good cards anyway. I don't think you need to be playing too many rank 1s. You end up like tunneling yourself down, limiting your options to what you can do. So we have the only link one, got Anima, pretty good. Pretty good one. Helped win me a game against Rizio. And then played a lot of Link 2s though. Playing Seals because Dragon is, believe it or not, a dragon. Masquerena because it's good. Little Knight, again, good. Like pretty much every deck should be playing a Little Knight. Silhouette Rabbit as well is the last one. So we're playing the 4 Link 2s. One thing this deck does struggle with is back row interruption on your opponent's turn. So that's what this is for. Then we play an Balcu and an Underworld Goddess. This is cuttable, this is not. This never actually came up either week. The idea is you talents take an opponent's monster, like a Link 3 if you're against Malice, turn it into an Balcu with your Archfiend, which again, very on the nose with the names. It's a fiend. Never really came up, and it would literally just be that. You can't really even use its effect to go to summon a monster back from grave, because we barely, all the lights and darks are on the extra deck, and sometimes you don't even go into them. This is really, really good, not just for getting rid of annoying cards, because after turn 3, this deck can just spam monsters out like there's no tomorrow. But it also is a target for a card that comes in our side deck rather. So we'll move on to that now. So the side deck, fairly standard really. Phantasmas, we play these for Malice decks, Fiendsmith decks, just link decks, a lot of link decks. So pretty good. We then play 3 Shifter. The last game against Valmonica Rizio, I had Phantasma Nib in hand. I used it on their Requiem, they chained it, so I drew into Dimension Shifter and I discarded the Shifter and then nibbed them, and that's what won me the game. Very good against Blue Eyes as well. And then this card, along with Lancia, which obviously is good against Malice. I find it very, very funny that both of these counter Crystron, because they need cards in the grave, but they also need to banish them from the grave as well. So playing both of these cards against that deck is very, very good. We then play 3 copies of Metaltronus. Insane card. So many targets in this deck. Against Blue Eyes, you've got Seals in the extra deck, which, although it does negate the monster, you can tribute it still and get the graveyard effect or summon Dragon or Magnamot. Or you can just summon one of the Bestials targeting the Spirit Dragon. So it's pretty good there. Lots and lots of different targets. You got your Underworld Goddess as a target for both Griffin and Detonator. So very, very powerful card. Definitely think it's a staple at the moment. Knew this card would be good. Picked it up when it was like 10 pence a copy. Then the last 3 cards are thrust targets. Yay, fun. As you've noticed, most of this deck is just floodgates. So we got Featherstorm, because we have quite a few Windwing Beasts in the extra deck. Artifact Sanctum, mainly just for Moss, and then D-Barrier as well. So, yeah, that's the side deck. Pretty cool, nothing too fancy or out of the ordinary with the side deck. I just did think it was worth mentioning, because basically, well, I think D-Barrier came up once, but other than that, the thrust targets didn't come up. Never played Lancia, but everything else came up quite a few times, so I thought it was worth mentioning. So yeah, there we go. Okay guys, so that does bring us to the end of the deck profile. I do hope you've enjoyed that. I will leave a link to the dueling book deck page download if you just do want to try out the deck for yourselves. It's very, very fun. It's a nice little, I'd say it's slightly faster to play pace than a control deck, but not quite mid-ranged. But you can play it in many different ways. Kashtira, I've seen people cooking with Blue Eyes. I might give that a go once people actually figure out how to play properly, because I will say I'm very terrible when it comes to making up brand new ideas. I'm good at taking existing ideas and improving on them, which is what I believe I did here. This is a very similar deck list to the list that was on the stream at YCS Orlando, I believe it was, a couple of weeks ago. And well, if you go off the 2 local records, I did go the equivalent of 7-1, which I think is pretty good. So yeah, if you've got any comments, if you think there's anything that I really messed up with, which I don't think there is, if you think there's something I could improve, if anything you was different, if anything you would do was different, if there's anything that you thought, oh, this is great, I'll give this a try myself, just feel free to put it in the comments down below. Give us a subscribe. Very small channel, I very rarely upload. But it is nice to just see that little number going up. Like the video as well, that's also very good. But yeah, I do hope you've enjoyed this most importantly, and have a good day. Goodbye.